Hello and welcome to Isaac's Universe. It is a representation of the creation of the universe, the solar system, the atmosphere, water on Earth, and life. I hope you enjoy. To begin, go through the iron door. So this is the start of the universe. It started with a big bang, as shown here, and then expanded outward, as shown with the sphere around me. So you can show the expansion of the universe as shown here, a kind of bubble or balloon, as in it all goes outward at the same rate, and if you're standing in one place, like on the edge, it looks like everything is expanding away from you, except if you go, let's say, here, it'll do the exact same thing. So now, let us look at the creation of our solar system. So here's the creation of our solar system. Sorry, technical difficulties. So there are a couple ways that the solar system could have been made. One of them is the solar system started out as a nebulous cloud in the middle of the vacuum of space, and the individual particles in the nebulous cloud started having a gravitational pull. So then they started grouping together and slamming into each other, and that grouping them together, and then they started from a little tiny piece to a slightly bigger piece to a bigger piece to an even bigger piece, and eventually to larger pieces with a large amount of gravitational pull, which skyrocketed how much they add on and eventually turn into the planets. So now we will look at the creation of our atmosphere. So the first atmosphere was primarily made of CH4 and N2, and it was a very volatile space, i.e., it had lots of sheer um, just energy in it, so i.e., things like lava and heat and electricity, which literally split the molecules in CH4 so that the majority of the atmosphere in number 2 is just nitrogen. So this is actually, interestingly enough, the atmosphere in which life was originated, which means that life originally was consisted of anaerobic organisms which just used nitrogen and things like nitrogen to create small amounts of ATPs, i.e. 2 instead of 36 using oxygen. So then this, as a byproduct, would create oxygen, which made the third atmosphere. So the third atmosphere had oxygen and nitrogen as their main components, oxygen being 20% and nitrogen being 80%. This is the one that we live in, and it supports life with mostly things that use um, cellular respiration, which produces 36 ATPs. So then we go to the origin of water on Earth. So the two main theories that I wanted to talk about, sorry, um, was that ice could have been coalesced on the Earth from huge ice asteroids hitting it from the Earth going through a field of them, and then them melting into water. And then the other one is that the water is actually in the rocks. Interestingly enough, most rocks are 2 to 3% water, as shown here. Um, and then when it melts, the water, which is very interestingly enough also light element, would go to the edges or the outside of the Earth and create the Earth's oceans. So lastly, but for me most importantly, we have the creation of life itself. So I couldn't really think of a way to show life as a anything other than Stanley Miller's um, test tube. So what Stanley Miller did is he theorized that if we got the primordial soup of all of the building blocks of life and then put them into a test tube with huge amounts of different pressures and electricity and heat, it would maybe after the upteenth time create um, maybe amino acids or building blocks. So he got the what was presumed to be the things that were in the Earth at that time, or at on the outside of the Earth at the time, and then put it with water and heat and electricity. I couldn't get the electricity working, but then the condensation on the outside, he looked in and found supposedly amino acids, which would show that that's how life was created. It's one of the most controversial things about life in existence. And that is my project.